What is up, guys? It's your boy GRC. We're coming at you live every single day at 11 a.m. Eastern. And today we have Gamma on. He is a blockchain RPC node specialist, an RPC maintainer, a DDoS and node infrastructure security Linux system admin. And that's where I was starting my note taking this morning, and I haven't made it too far down any of it. But we're going to be talking about Pulse Chain today, Ethereum, nodes, clients, and blockchain infrastructure as much as we can, along with how people can participate and what hardware is needed, what is the minimum necessity to participate in the securing of these systems. And we got Gamma on. He's the best of the best. Everyone refers, they say, oh, we'll get Gamma on. We'll talk to Gamma in a little bit. Oh, next time we come on, we'll get Gamma. And so I want everyone to go ahead and follow this man and to stop asking me technical questions. You go to his websites and you do his stuff. And because he's making videos now. Well, I don't know if he just started making videos, but I watched 3 of his videos over the last 24 hours. And he's going live. And so if you guys have questions about this stuff, he's literally holding your hand and walking through, literally holding your hand and walking through everything slow by slow. And for some of us, you know, me and Sam are a little bit, well, I don't want to speak for Sam because Sam's a fucking genius, but we know how to provide liquidity, V2, V3. We know how to make transactions. We know how to secure our crypto, stuff like this. And now I'm going down the blockchain infrastructure road. And oh, it's a mountain for me because all the verbiage is a little different. But at the end of the day, when you really break it down, it's simple. We're talking about nodes. We're talking about clients. We're talking about hardware. We're talking about blockchain, baby. Let's go. Crypto in the morning, every single day at 11 a.m. Eastern. Let me play my video.
You already know what time it is. Crypto in the morning. Crypto in the morning. Crypto in the morning. Waiting on phone. Crypto in the morning. 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 Waiting on phone. Crypto in the morning. Crypto in the morning. Smoking a blunt on my way to the gym. 11 a.m. and I'm already tuned in. Got me some hacks and I'm making a stake. Got me some heads on, I'm making it rain. Pay me some maxi and that just in case. Jim Reddit sent me to show you the way. Crypto in the morning. 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 Crypto in the morning.
There he is. What's up, man? I appreciate you coming on today. Gamma. When I think of Gamma, it brings me back to learning about options, right? That's an option, one of the option Greeks there. Where did you get that? Where'd you get that name?
So you can hear me, right?
Pardon?
Okay, awesome. No, just making sure you can hear me. Yeah, so Gamma, I actually started it because Gamma is a symbol for the Euler constant. It's a mathematical constant. I thought that would be really interesting. That's kind of like a mathy technical thing. And then I Googled searched Gamma and I didn't really see a lot of hits. So for branding and like kind of name recognition, there was nobody that was similar. You know, in crypto, you see 10,000 crypto, blah, blah. It's all the same name. And you're like, I've seen this dude like 17 times. And then it turns out to be like not even the same guy you've seen. It's like a totally new guy with the exact same name. Well, I didn't want that. So what I ended up doing, I was just choosing Gamma.
Can we talk about your journey? Just start with your journey. How did you get into the tech space? And then how did you get into cryptocurrency and all the way up to now? And he's,
Sure.
you know, Pulse chain, you're clearly in the Ethereum Pulse chain ecosystems primarily, it seems like, from what I've read.
Yeah. So I came to crypto in 2017. I was actually in my MBA program here in the city that I'm in. I'm in the central US. So I was finishing my MBA program and I didn't know what I was going to do because I left my corporate job and I was like last semester. And then I was hanging out in the afternoon waiting for a class to start. And I came across Ethereum. I was like, what's this Ethereum thing? So that's really what started me in the down the road. I mean, before then, 2010-ish, I was learning Objective-C, building websites. I was like getting into Linux. I like installing WordPress on the websites and installing forms on the websites and kind of like doing all that back end technical stuff. So I'm more of a sysadmin, like Linux sysadmin kind of a guy. Been doing that for like 13 years. More of a hobbyist, kind of like self-taught myself. I never really had like a corporate job doing that kind of thing. I went to college for history, political science, actually, and then I got a business degree. And then, but I've loved technology for so long, and then crypto really kind of feeds that. So because you have markets, you have assets, you have regulation, talking about all the SEC stuff. Then you have also the technical, like understanding smart contracts, understanding the infrastructure of how blockchains function, and all that's tied up, and it's very interesting and very complicated, which I like. So
What is that? What you brought you into like the RPC stuff and the nodes? Because the average person doesn't pay attention to that.
No, so here's a story on that. I was on Matic a couple years ago when the bull market was happening. I was on Matic, and that's a new blockchain, right? That's a side chain for Ethereum layer 2 solution provider. They're like doing layer 2 solutions, their own take on layer 2 solutions. But they have a side chain, and I was on there. And when the bull market happened, there was a lot of yield farms that happened. There was a lot of transactions that happened, and they had a huge problem with the RPC. What you got to understand about blockchains is you have thousands of nodes that are all syncing the blockchain, the database, and then there's a few of them that are providing you access to that data, and those are called RPC endpoints. And it'd be a cluster of servers or one, or you can run your own in your house, and you route your transactions through your own full node. But the public one on Matic was overloaded, and it was not a good experience at all for users, because I was trying to just use it, and I didn't even know how to do the RPC thing. Although I know how to run full nodes, this is like another step in providing external access to people to access data on it. So it's like a full node, and then you add some software on top of it, connected to a domain with DNS, and right, and you're putting the URL of the website in, and now you're providing the data for the MetaMask.
Let's take a step back, because I think let's start with nodes. Like, what kind of, very simply, is a node, and what are the benefits of the node? And there's like archive nodes and full nodes and partial nodes and this node and that nodes. Can you give a very simple?
Okay, so Ethereum right now, so we're not going to go past it. Don't worry about the past. Current right now, you have 2 clients. So you can say they're like here. So you have the consensus client, which is the beacon chain.
Question. I'm just going to raise my hand. What is a client, so that people, for myself,
client is a program. So you can say program, you can say a client. A client would be a program that you interact with, because you're interacting with it because you are giving it commands, and you are making it validate. To be a validator, you're making it send transactions. It's a program that you interact with. So I use client. Because program is too generalized. So you have like the Prism client, which is Prism program, and then so the consensus client.
How many clients do they have on Ethereum?
So they have like 7 or something of these. So right, Pulse Chain is using Lighthouse. Oh, sorry, Lighthouse and Prism are the consensus layer clients, which is validators. Who's a validator? Who is in rotation? Who's going to do the next block? Who's going to get slashed for doing a double signing of a block? Who, like all that's consensus environment. That's the validators. That's staking. And then you have the execution environment. That's executing transactions, if you can remember that. So think execution layer is executing client transactions, sending assets, interacting with a smart contract, all that. And that is, for Pulse Chain, Aragon and Geth. But there's like 5 other ones that Ethereum has that are all minor. So the main ones are Aragon, Geth for the execution environment. That's where all the account balances are and everything, that database. And there's like 5 other ones that are minor.
So there's two layers of client type programs where one
Yes.
there's
So there's two. So there's two clients. There's two blockchains actually that run on the exact same computer that in tandem with one another, they're connected. So you have the consent beacon chain, and then you have the execution environment blockchain, which is what we understand of Geth, which is account balances, contracts, execution. We do a trade on a Uniswap. All that's on the Geth Aragon blockchain. And then you have the Lighthouse Prism Beacon Chain blockchain, which is where all the validators, information is stored, who's going to be the next person to create a block, all that.
So,
And they're connected together on the same computer in tandem where you can't run one without the other. That's why they're merged. That's what the merge means. The databases aren't merged. It means these two blockchains are merged together where you have to have one without one doesn't run without the other. They're connected.
so there's effectively, if I'm understanding, I'm going to try to paraphrase this and please interrupt me. So there's a blockchain that is associated with transactions, right? Like that's what we normal folks are going to call like mainnet, so to speak, or like that's what we would think of. But in that same layer, or like slightly separate, is the layer, another blockchain that just started at the merge, what's been running along the merge separately, parallel to it, but now they're actually connected as of the merge, and they're running connected with each other. Am I describing this correctly or understanding this correctly?
Yeah, you just rephrased what I said, but yeah. You're understanding that correctly.
Okay, interesting. And they need to be connected so that the validators can go through and approve the transactions that take place on the blockchain.
Yeah, so after the merge happened, after these two databases were connected together, the only people that are allowed to create blocks are the validators, and the miners, the proof of work miners, are now no longer allowed to do that. It's called a difficulty. What the Ethereum network basically did was it just made it so difficult, infinitely impossible for a proof of work miner to add a block to the Ethereum blockchain. And to replace it at that exact same moment is a validator, which is on the network running the beacon chain client, right? Beacon chain, like blockchain. And then you add your stake, your 32 million pulse, or your 32 Ethereum, and then you get like approved to be a validator, and then now you're in rotation, which is effectively random. You're randomly assigned a block, and as long as you're online, then you produce a block for that at that time, and then you get paid for that.
So you had mentioned Matic, right? So on Polygon, from my understanding, is also using the security kind of like backbone for Ethereum. So on the Polygon side, do you have like a tie into Ethereum in some way, and then you also have two layers on Polygon where you have the blockchain, and then can you describe
Pulse
how
Chain's
that
the
works?
only one who's going to have that. Well, it's one of the interesting things about Pulse Chain is because Richard and his devs pivoted to current Ethereum, forking current Ethereum code as opposed to prior. Pulse Chain is going to be the only alternative blockchain that is running these two client proof of stake system, just like Ethereum. It's the only network that's going to be able to take all the improvements that Ethereum's making. All the other ones, BSC, Avalanche, Polygon, you know what I mean? Like all those, we were talking about Polygon, Matic, right? I mean, they're all the same. They're a fork, like how Pulse Chain was going to be a fork of Ethereum before, just forking Geth. That's what they did. They just forked either a BSC version or they forked the Ethereum Go Ethereum version directly, and they made changes to it, and they booted up their own network that was an empty blockchain, and now they're running with it. And
now, when that change occurred, it made a lot of people feel a lot of things. I remember because people had started putting work in certain avenues. How did you feel, just from a technical point of view, not as much like whatever you were doing? Did that excite you that the future innovation could be a little more bright here over in Pulse Chain?
I was also very disappointed in the change because I was kind of like already expecting Pulse Chain to be a certain way. So there was a cap supply and then burning afterwards. Okay, that was old Pulse Chain, but now we have slight inflation and then we have burning. So so there's going to be a little bit of inflation. So that's a thing. And so some of the technicals are changed now, are different
Can you
because
talk
of
about
the
that?
network structure has changed. So like some of those things, and it took me a little while. I mean, I have to like warm up to the idea of of it and kind of think of like what are the positives now of Pulse Chain being so similar to Ethereum and being able to take in the improvements that Ethereum has. And there's some great improvements. There's some great reasons why we should all be very excited about Pulse Chain because of that. And then we have to just understand that technically this is the way they had to do it. And some of the tokenomics slightly changed. But all the dApps that are running on V2B, they can run on Pulse Chain. Like this change doesn't really affect the way the dApps are going to function at all. 3-second block times versus 10-second block times. It's a little bit of a narrative thing. So there's
Well,
some
I wanted
technical
to ask,
differences.
can I ask you about the you said that the from the fork that it was going to be for Pulse Chain to now being a fork of 2.0, that there's some changes to the tokenomics of Pulse. And you also had mentioned that there's some benefits associated with switching from the 1.0 proof of, that we were going to fork to the 2.0 that is going to be forked now. Can you talk about the difference in the tokenomics?
Sure.
And then I want to get into the benefits of that afterwards.
Yeah. So if you understand, gas is still calculated the same. So one fundamental thing you have to understand is when Ethereum did the merge and we moved from ETH1 to ETH2, which is the way for people to really understand like the difference. The way they calculate gas in ETH1 is the same way they're calculating gas in ETH2. Because fundamentally the Geth, Aragon, like the execution environment didn't change so much. Now they changed so that they can integrate proof of stake and the beacon chain, but they didn't change the way gas is calculated. So that's the same. The differences between what we were going to do and what we are going to do now is block times are going to be more similar to the ETH 2.0, 10-second blocks instead of its current Ethereum is 12-second blocks. So they decreased the block time by 2, which is fundamentally like a very small change. So it's fine. The size of the blocks are basically going to be the same. So that's really not a big change. Whereas 135 trillion Pulse coins that are going to be in existence in people's wallets when we launch. One fundamental difference is that was going to be a cap supply, none to be ever created again, and then only burned with the 25% burning fee and all that. Well, because of the change they had to make, Ethereum has inflation. They have slight inflation, right? I don't know exactly how many PLS per block we're going to have created, but it's similar to Ethereum. So there's Ethereum has 2 or 3 Ethereum that's created per period of time, not per block, but like per period of time. And then a Pulse is going to have like some amount that's created per period of time. And I can't say what those are because we would love to see testnet so I can get these numbers, right? But I'm saying like Pulse has some inflation, a little bit of inflation. Ethereum has a little bit of inflation. It's offset by the transactions that users are using, like the burn. EIP 1559 has built-in burning. So you burn the PLS, you burn the Ethereum, and if there's enough transactions on the network, if you're full blocks, if you get like half the blocks are filled, all the blocks are filled, then those are the amount of transactions on Ethereum right now. You're talking 1.3, 1.5 million per day. So a Pulse Chain gets up over 1 million transactions per day, which would be really great, right? It's probably not going to start there, but maybe it gets there. It could be there like maybe sometimes and not others, whatever. But on those days where there was a lot of transactions, then it'll be net deflationary, meaning for that day, the total amount of Ethereum would be net negative. Now, maybe per week or per month, there's a little bit of inflation that's happening, but it's not as great as if there were no burns. Like Bitcoin has 6.25 Bitcoin, and it's going to go to 3.125 here in the next halvening, right? But there's no burning on Bitcoin. So they just net inflate. They just inflate, and they just count on new users coming in and all that. Well, Ethereum has burning. Every transaction there's burning. Same thing with Pulse Chain. So
it's basically a lot. I mean, I've seen a lot of hyperinflationary coins do amazing price performance. Like I always feel like when it comes to the direct liquidity pool and people buying and selling, that's always like what ends up being, the factors that actually make the price move. Is this all just like talking points for the most part? I know it matters with the exact numbers, of course, but in general, are these just talking points? Because we've seen inflationary coins obviously go up in price dramatically.
Yeah, I mean, it's over the long term it matters, but in the short term, it just really matters like who buys and who sells. That's what moves the price up. Over the long term, one thing that you say is like the miners, the validators, they get their fee and then they can do whatever they want with it. They can sell that on the market, right? And they're going to get their fee. In aggregate, if the total amount of the coins over time goes down, then they're just like less, right? So having that small amount of the fee is net beneficial to the entire network. But in the short term, it really just matters who buys and who sells and the thickness of the liquidity pools. It's a great narrative. It's a great talking point. Having the total supply decrease over time is a positive thing, because you say 50 years from now, do you really want to have a quadrillion tokens, or would you rather have 100 million? So over the long term, it really matters.
You had mentioned, and then I wanted to ask about the benefits of the going from the 1.0, because you said that there was probably benefits. But you'd mentioned I think like 1 million transactions on Ethereum. So when I look at DexScreener, there's like 150,000, 120, 190,000 transactions per day. What do you mean by like 100 or like 1 million transactions?
Yeah, across every transaction across the entire Ethereum blockchain. You're looking at like what's on the liquidity pools and Uniswap and SushiSwap and 1inch, and like you're looking at just exchanges. But there's a huge amount of transactions that are not just exchanging.
Where do you find
these are every transaction, like even sales of Ethereum sends, like I send you Ethereum, that's not going to show up on DexScreener because I just sent you Ethereum.
Where do you find that information? Where can I find that information?
Oh, on the Explorer, Etherscan. It'll have.
And it says it on there somewhere. If I poke around, I can.
Yeah.
I
mean, you poke around Etherscan, you'll find the total amount of transactions per day. Block Scout, which is the execution layer Explorer that we're going to use. Richard actually did a screenshot of Block Scout, and that's for the account balances, and that's for contract calls and all that. Like that blockchain as an Explorer, it's called Block Scout. It's a free open source, like not so great Explorer, but it's free. So what are you going to do? Right? Everyone likes free. And on there, on the very top left corner, it actually shows you the transactions per day. Like it says a little graph, and it shows you, 20,000, 30,000, 1 million transactions per day. It is right there on Block Scout. Early blockchains, like new ones, then that's the metric everyone wants. Yeah, right here. See on the upper left-hand corner?
In the pink?
Daily transactions.
Transactions.
We maxed out at like 1.3, 1.5 transactions per day on Ethereum. So that'll be kind of, it depends on, here's a term called the gas limit. And that simply means how many transactions, how many transactions can go into a block. And it's based on some math that, I could do a whole video on how to do that. But it just says the gas limit just means like how big can the block be? So how many transactions can go into the block? And that's defined by a gas limit. And right now the gas limit's like 30 million or something on Ethereum. So you're talking, 1.3 million. They can increase it a little bit. So BSC has like 80 million gas limit. So obviously their blocks are larger.
The benefits for Pulse come in by switching from 1.0 copy to 2.0 copy?
But one of the major ones is being able to take all the new development on Ethereum, and being able to integrate that into Pulse Chain, and that includes all the layer 2 solution. Their EIP 4844, which is dank sharding, which is what they're calling sharding. With they changed what sharding means. If you've heard about Ethereum sharding, the way they're doing that is completely different now, because they're not creating like 64 identical EVM client blockchains and doing some other stuff we don't really need to go into. But what they're doing is they're making it easy for layer 2 solutions to do transactions, bulk transactions to the layer 1 cheaper. So they're a blob sharding. So they're gonna like basically a layer 2 solution, which is that's where Ethereum is going. They're going to make layer 2 solutions very easy. So in the future, most apps will be layer 2 solutions, and then there's going to be most of the activity are going to be on layer 2 solutions sharding. And then what they're doing is they're making it cheaper and standardizing the way that you would actually move. The way a layer 2 solution really works is like, say on the screen, you're both on the layer 2 trying to interact, and then I'm on the layer 1. And so you move an asset from crypto gym wrap over to you, whatever. And then like you move it back to him, and then there's a third guy, and and you're all moving assets around. And then none of that is on the layer 1 until like say the end of the day, or like every minute, or it could be every hour, or whatever time frame. It could be just whatever. And then every so often, all those transactions get broadcast to the layer 1 so that I can see it on the layer 1, and all the other contracts, all the other layer 2 solutions that are on Ethereum or say Pulse Chain, where this is going to be Pulse Chain is going to inherit this. We'll see that. And so you can do your transactions super cheap. And then every once in a while, then the layer 1 solution will get a record of that. And depending on the layer 2 solution, then they're done in certain ways. Like these are basically side chains. Fundamentally, a layer 2 solution is just a side chain of Ethereum that is done in several different ways, like ZK rollups, optimistic rollups. There's a bunch of other different solutions. I like ZK rollups personally. I think that was the most interesting, but that's like totally other talk we can have about that.
We should have a part 2 on there, but let's go back to nodes
Sure.
and RPC part 2, because like that whole arena. And
we can go on a tangent, so it'll bring me back to where you want to talk about.
Okay. Why would the average person, like, what would they benefit from running a node, right? So there are going to be people who are watching who are not as deep technically in this arena as you are, right? And they hear about nodes, but it's kind of just like the thing that nobody ever actually pays attention to in reality, except for people like you're paying attention and we're having a conversation because we want to learn about this stuff. But most people just don't give an F about nodes. Sure. So what are some benefits to like why would I want
the average user who's not a developer, who doesn't really care like how the sauce is made? So there's a problem with if you use a third-party provider that's like Infura, and you are trying to do stuff on the blockchain somewhere in the world, Infura could not agree that you should be able to do that, and they could censor that transaction and not allow you to do that through their services. They could block it because they have ownership of those servers, and they could just literally just block that transaction and just delete it. And so your transaction never goes to the blockchain. The way to get around that is you can run your own full node on your own computer that you're using to do transactions, and then you can connect your MetaMask wallet directly to the full node that you're running on your own computer, and then you don't have to worry about that because you can do anything you want.
In a full node system,
chip resistance is
entire blockchain, right? Like it takes it. That's when you download everything, right?
Yeah. I mean, you download all the blocks. It's about 600. Well, it's about 1 terabyte, maybe 800 gigabytes. Geth is 700 something gigabyte, and then you gotta then you're gonna have to run the beacon chain. and you're going to have to run Geth or Aragon. So you're talking 800-900 gigabytes, close to 1 terabyte on your computer. So it's not like you can do it on a laptop if it has enough specs. But mostly you're talking about like kind of a mid-range gaming computer. And what's actually interesting is to run a full node, like I'm saying, just for an end user, the exact same hardware requirements are what you need for to run a validator. And you just add like another program that you would some extra steps to be a validator.
And so when you're talking about running a full node, I mean, when people ask, because a lot of people ask me questions, so I am a little all over the place. But one question that was asked was the minimum hardware needed to run a Pulse node. Now, are you talking about a full node, or are you
the same? The same. So the minimum specs, very very easy, bare minimum, like barely able to do it. But if you were just a user and you are not being a validator, that you're just running the beacon chain and then the execution environment blockchain. So you're going to be running Prism or Lighthouse, and then you're going to be running Geth or Aragon on your computer. And then I have a step-by-step video that like they have a description of the video or whatever. You can go back there and look at my step-by-step instructions or whatever. You run those on your computer, 16 gigs of RAM, like 4 CPU, which is pretty reasonable. I mean, so most normal computers are going to have at least like 4 CPUs, like 8 cores, especially if you're going to do like really anything with it. So that's not really a big ask. It doesn't require a lot of hardware requirements. So 16 gigs of RAM, bare minimum. I would recommend 32 gigs of RAM, especially if you're going to be a validator. Because Geth or Aragon is going to take half of that data, and there's going to use it for one thing about being a full node is it gets all the transactions that are on the network that are pending in memory, and it just sees all of them, because that's literally what a full node does. You have a copy of the blockchain, and you give that copy the new blocks you see to other people on the blockchain. So the peers, so you and 36 other computers, you're all talking. There could be thousands of them, but you see like 36 computers. And so you get a new block 1000. You see that 20 other peers that you have don't have block 1000. So you give it to them. And then when they see block 1001 and you don't have it yet, they give it to you, and you're sharing the blocks. And this happens on the beacon chain, and happens on the execution environment blockchain, which is Geth and Aragon. And you're just constantly sharing these blocks. And you're also validating that the transactions in those blocks is valid, and you're doing all this verification stuff, right? But you're also sharing the transactions. So before I was talking about the way how to get around, like if you're censoring you, is you just run your own full node to your transaction. Well, maybe you're not a validator, but you want your transaction to be included in the network because you're doing a transaction. You add your own transaction to your own full node. Your full node gives it to its 36 peers. Those 36 peers give it to another 36 peers, and then it propagates across the entire network. And then eventually it lands in the inbox of the validator that's next in rotation. And then hopefully it's a cool validator, and it says, oh, that's a valid transaction. They put it into a block, then it creates a block. And then now the new block is created. And then now the 36 peers that it's peer to get that block, and then it propagates to the entire network. And then eventually you get the block with your transaction in it, and it's confirmed. And you're good to go. And that's basically how clients work.
So
I mean,
cool.
I summarized it in like 30 seconds.
But
Not anything more complicated than that.
Just before you ask that question, guys, I want you to stop asking me technical questions. This is my dream. I want you to go to these. I watched 6 hours of this guy in the last 24 hours, and I didn't understand much of it, but I know there's a lot of you guys that are way more advanced. And he's doing hours and hours of videos walking through these things step by step. And I'm just grateful that there's a resource that I can point to. I mean, that's my job today, is to support him. And I'm going to be listening to this 12 or 15 times and making clips as well. So that's my job. But my other job is to get you to subscribe to his channels, because he's becoming extremely active, and he's going live. I mean, this is pending for 2 p.m. today. Validator installation series pulse chain in Ethereum.
2
And it's a
hours, I'm going live
Q&A,
again.
so you're answering questions in the chat.
Okay. You had mentioned, yes, go check it out, because that's like a lot
It's in the
deeper
description.
into, lots of videos on this kind of stuff. Okay, so running a node, the primary benefit that somebody could see is not being censored by the centralized nodes in the network who choose to censor other people or their transactions. But couldn't this censorship also take place at the validator level?
Oh, yeah,
Like,
that's an interesting technical question. Awesome. I love technical questions. So there's a situation with MEV right now, MEV Boost from Flashbots, where their validators in Ethereum can run a special client. It's like a middleware between you have the validator and you have the mempool of the client of Geth or Aragon, and that's where the transactions reside. And what MEV Boost is doing is it's delegating what transactions can go into the blocks you create. And so instead of you deciding, like your computer with your transactions, instead of you deciding which transactions are going to go into the block, you delegate that to another server that's on the network that's ran by Flashbots, this MEV software. And so it's telling you what transactions you should put in, because it's going to reorder those transactions. It's going to make it so you make a slightly more money. But then the downside of that is they're also going to censor some transactions and say, we don't want to add that transaction into the blend pool. We're going to give you a little bit more money, but then we're going to add censorship into the network. And so that's effectively what they're doing, because they want to be OFAC compliant, because they're like a big company and they don't want to get sued and in trouble with the government, right? So what you want to do is you don't want to run that software, for one thing, because I would never run that software. I don't care how much money they would give me, because they're not giving you that much anyway. I mean, I'm saying, like, if they give me $1 billion, maybe I'll run it. But like, I'm gonna give for a couple percentage points. I'm not running their software that's censoring the network. It's not really worth it to me. But on Ethereum, there's lots and lots of validators that run it, because that 1 or 2% really means a lot to them, and they don't really care about the censorship of transactions that much. Because on Ethereum, your transaction is going to get put into a block. There's lots and lots of validators that aren't running the Flashbots MEV software. So eventually your transaction is going to go to a validator that is like cool, right? A cool validator. And they're going to put that transaction into a block. It might take a little bit longer, right? So instead of going in like a minute, then maybe you got to wait like 5 or 10 minutes. And then your transaction gets verified and succeeds, and it's in a block, and you're fine, right? The network's not really censoring all the transactions. From what I understand, there's no transaction that's ever really been censored by the network, because the network isn't allowing that. Now, does it take a little bit longer for your transaction to go into the next block? Yeah, because
so is it all?
well, that's happening. It takes longer. That's all that's really happening.
But it sounded like the censorship always takes place at the node level.
It happens as a validator, because the validators are the ones who are creating the blocks.
So the MEV Boost software that you were talking about, that's at the node level, or is that at the validator level?
That's a validator, which is a full
okay.
node. They're the same. So a full node is a full node. A validator is a full node plus one piece of software, which is the validator's client running, which is Prism. So it's a program. So you can say a validator is a full node with one extra piece, which is the validator running.
So when you talked about the MEV making 1 or 2%, like, I think that one of the issues with why more people are not running nodes and helping secure the network and using that portal to enter the network for their transactions is because there's no money involved in it, right? There's a blockchain out there called Cyto, which like solves for this, right? So that you don't have that issue anymore. But is there a way to, because in Sido, basically you are the trilemma that is just people think is reality is only reality because of the design of the chain. If you change the design of it, you don't have that issue. Just like on a bicycle, right, or a motorcycle, you could only really bring two people, right? The person driving and somebody maybe sitting behind them, and excluding a sidecar type thing. Well, if you change the design of the transportation from a motorcycle to a car, now you're capable of carrying more people in the car, and you don't have the same risks that come with a motorcycle when you switch the design. So Sido has this new blockchain which they don't have this issue because they actually split the rewards between the nodes on the network as well as the validators on the network. So is there a way to use a node to earn income? Because I think if there's a way to use a node,
there's been third party projects that have done that and they've failed horribly. The way on Ethereum to earn money running a full node is to be a validator, and it's net profitable to do so. Now, people think about the capital cost of the stake, the 32 Ethereum or the 32 million Pulse, which is, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, depending on the price of a PLS. That's not really a cost. You're just locking your money up. So you can't really think of that as a capital expense because you're not spending that $3,000 on a hardware. You're spending that $3,000 on an asset that's locked away, but you are spending money on a computer, and that computer could cost $3 or $4 grand. Sure. But then that's like, if you're running it in your house, and you have that computer lasts for 3 or 4 years, you have maybe a $2,000-$3,000 capital expense. It runs for 3 or 4 years. On Ethereum, you're getting 3 or 4% based on that's basically what your return is on Ethereum right now. To be a validator is like maybe 3 or 4%. So if you're a validator long enough, you're going to make back your capital. Because 32 Ethereum times 1.6K. So you're talking, $36,000. And if you're making, I can do the back of the math right now on that one. I'm just spitballing math right now. So say it's $36,000 on a validator. Sure, that's probably around where it's going to be. And then you're making 3%. That's like $1,000 a year. Within 3 years, you can break even on your validator. So you probably want to decrease your capital cost on your computer hardware.
What about the risk of that? And this might be because I'm on the outside and I don't fully understand, but when I'm running proof of work, there's not any risk, right? If I'm running a validator, there is risk.
What define risk? Why do you mean there would be?
Because somebody else can.
You're running a proof of work. You bought the huge amount of capital requirements for hardware. You're still validating the network, so your risk is does the blockchain cease to function tomorrow? That's your risk.
Slashing
only exists with proof of stake if you are not intelligent enough or educated enough. Say educated enough, right? People are intelligent to keep your keys on two computer and run them at the same time. So that's your risk of slashing.
Can you talk about?
That's management. That's a personal management risk. Your personal execution was poor, so that you got slashed because your poor performance as a manager of a validator was so bad that you had your keys running on two computers at the same time, which the network does not like. That's a double signing, and you're going to get slashed for that. And if you continue to do it, you're going to get kicked off the network and lose a lot of money.
One of my 4 questions was, what is node slashing? Because I was running into that a lot, and I couldn't in my head. I only had so much time to study. And literally my 3rd question on this list was, what is node slashing? And guys, Richard Hart just tweeted an update, Pulse Chain V3. And I'm sorry to put you on the spot, Gamma, but I'm just going to pull it up because we love it.
Let's see it. I haven't seen it yet. I'm not looking at Twitter right now.
I need 10 retweets because I want to get back to the slashing.
Okay, so here, I'll talk about slashing while you think about 10 retweets. So slashing, right? People are overly concerned
Internal temperature high. Allow it.
Oh, I got a meme for this.
Oh no, that's my camera.
It's all
We
right.
can still hear you. We just can't see you.
Here, I'm gonna move to my other here.
Go ahead. I can always do some shilling.
There we
Oh,
go.
wow.
I have redundant systems over here.
Make sure there's nothing that they can zoom in on that you don't want over in that corner.
No, it's my watch collection. So if you want to see my Rumbigas,
I'm assuming it's $10 million plus.
yeah, God, no, it's more like 50, but that's fine. I
Oh,
have
wait,
a very
I was gonna
nice.
do this real quick. When your computer heated up.
Yeah, it's my camera.
Your
I don't know
camera-
why it heated up, but it my camera decided to die on me, which has actually never happened before.
Okay,
No, but hey, we're talking about slashing. So people are overly concerned about slashing, and they think that if your computer's off, then you're gonna get slashed and you're kicked off the network, you're gonna lose all your money because, like in your house, your internet went out for a day, and then oh my God, you turn your computer on, and now it's like done. Like no, that's not how it works at all. So there's a couple ways you can do it. There's a couple scenarios I can go through. So the network is fine. The Ethereum network is functioning, like everything's going fine, right? And you personally lost power for a day. You just didn't earn money on the blocks you didn't produce because your computer was off. Other than that, like nothing happened to you. You're fine. You turn your computer back on, and then you see it syncs up, gets back online, and now you start producing blocks again. That's it. So if you try to migrate your, say, computer A and computer B, right? You move houses or like you want to upgrade your software. If you do not do it properly, you can get slashed. And that means like you left your first computer on, and then you did everything. You installed all the clients on a new computer. You copied your validator keys from the one computer to another computer, and you didn't turn off your first computer. And I actually have a whole video where I talk about this, actually, like the last part of one of my last videos is actually talking about this migration problem. What you want to do, each epoch in Ethereum, and it'll be the same for Pulse Chain, is 6.4 minutes long. What you want to do is the first computer, you want to have it off, completely off, not turned on, not connected to the internet for 2 full epochs. So basically 15 minutes.
What's an epoch?
Epoch is 32 blocks are published, verified, and then those 32 blocks are put into an epoch, which is like grouped together. And then that gets finalized. So basically what they do is you verify all 32 blocks, and then all those 32 blocks get re-verified by the network and get confirmed, and then now it's final.
Okay.
Like, and the network says, like, this is good.
An aggregate of 32 blocks after it is completely finalized is called an epoch.
Yeah. Well, the group of 32 is called an epoch.
Okay.
Epoch number, 6,500, whatever. And then epoch, plus one. It's same like a block, right?
Okay.
Like, Bitcoin, like you have block 1001, block 1002, where you might have like that group of like block 1 through block 32 is epoch 1, and then block 33, like a block block 33 through whatever 64 is like epoch 2. And that's basically how the beacon chain groups all these together in a way that re-verifies them, and they can do checkpointing, which is nice. So that those epochs are finalized because it's been verified by more than 67% of the whole network. All the validators, more than 67% of them have usually on Go Early anyway, it's like 78%, 81%, 85% of all the validators have confirmed that this epoch is good to go. And then it blocks it in, and then it moves on to the next one. And it's kind of like a technical thing.
No, I appreciate you explaining that to me because I had no idea what the fuck you're talking about. So thank you.
Sure. Yeah.
So slashing watched many times by me because I have no idea what you guys.
So slashing, right? So you're saying the only time and if this is correct, is the only
2 times. I'll give you 2 scenarios.
Okay.
One is moving from computer 1 to computer 2, and you as a manager of the validator fucked up, messed up, right? Kid friendly. You messed up, and you had your keys run on 2 computers. Well, you double signed, so that validator is going to get kicked off the network, and you're going to lose a lot of money, right? Because it's going to go from 32 Ethereum to 16 Ethereum, and going to get kicked off the network within hours, right? Because it depends on how many blocks those 2 validators try to produce, and then how many attestations, right? So your validator is going to like kind of confirm that all the blocks are valid, right? They're like it's a stamp of approval, basically. Like your validator says, "Hey, this block looks fine, nothing here," and then as long as 67% of the whole network agrees that block is fine, then that block is great. So you don't want to do that on 2 computers, though. So only 1 computer at a time. Now, there's the other way that you can lose money is if your computer is off. So there is a way you can lose money if your computer is off, but that's only if the Ethereum network is not finalizing. So if there's like a huge attack and like a major client like Prism is like offline for whatever reason, which happens on testnet sometimes. So 60% of the network is on, 40% is offline. Now the epochs are not finalizing because there's not more than 67% of the network that's validating all the blocks are good. So they're not finalizing. The longer that goes on, and if your computer isn't live on the network, looking at blocks, attesting they're good, then you're going to slowly start getting leaked money. Slowly. And then over time, more and more. So during those kinds of instances, it's very important that you're online that whole period of time so that you continue to support the network. And then the network will see you're online. You're good to go. Like no problem with you. They're leaving you alone. But then the other 40%, 30%, 40% that are offline, they're going to start getting slashed in progressively more aggressive manner until they kick off all the bad validators, all the ones that are like not online, and then they're going to slowly like kick off all those validators, and then eventually they're going to get to the point where there's more than 67% of the network that's active, and then now the chain continues on.
Okay, so that was my question. So there was 100%. Now there's 40% for whatever reason on the network validating, right? So there's 100% of the validators, 10,000. Now there's only 6,000 that are actually validating. At what point do they just be like, okay, cool. Well, the 6,000 is the 100%.
Yeah.
Is that when they
kick off?
Zero? Okay.
That's why multiple. So even Ivan and Tech was talking about the clients. He's like, well, it's kind of redundant. Why would you need multiple clients? Well, you need multiple clients because what if there's a bug in Prism, and then so now like, okay, I'm good. I'm going to install Lighthouse on my server, and I'll just run the Lighthouse client now because Prism is messed up, and so you're offline for like an hour, and then now everyone migrates to Lighthouse because Lighthouse is already online, configured, good to go. You load your validator keys into the Lighthouse client, you boot that up, and now you're back on the line. And now there's like an hour of downtime. That's why you need to have at least 2 clients for each layer of the blockchain, right? The beacon chain and the execution environment. You need to have at least 2 clients in case one of them messes up for whatever reason. This is like a dev level mess up, right? There's like some update that happened and it took off like a bunch of the network. Okay, you move to the other one that's not affected, and now the network just keeps going. Right, that's why you need 2.
Okay, so what? So this makes sense. I mean, like if my car doesn't work for some reason, I need to figure out another effing way to go where I want to go, whether that's Uber or like, hey, Gamma, can you pick me up and give me a fucking ride or whatever? Yeah. And effectively,
you want a hamburger. McDonald's for whatever has a flood, then you go to Burger King instead. Yeah, like it's fine. You're still getting a hamburger. Like everyone's fed. You can't use McDonald's until they clean up their mess, and you go to Burger King, and then tomorrow you go back to McDonald's.
So what happens to the slashing and the bleeding of the validators? Where does that 16 Ethereum go?
You know what? I think it gets burned. There's only 2 ways. Okay, you know what? This is a good question. I'll research this for you, and then I'll tweet it out. But it either gets burned or gets redistributed to stakers, and it probably is a hybrid of the 2 because Ethereum likes to love Right now, they love the burn. So there's only two things it would do. It either distribute it to stakers that are actually active, the ones that are actually supporting the network, which I think is actually happening, and they probably burn some of it. But I can reconfirm that. It's pretty easy for me to Google it after this.
And I will send that information directly to Sam.
So this is fascinating. Like the like, there's an analogy out there that I don't remember off the top of my head, but the idea of slashing from the uneducated, i.e., myself and 99.9% of people in crypto, is a risk that is perceived to be much bigger in probability of happening than what you're saying is actually likely, right? Because there's only two ways that you can get slashed. If you're not on the network when for an extended period of time, it sounded like pretty much.
I'm talking about like days. You're like not online for days, but then not only you're not online for days, there's like more than 30 more. I mean, like 40% of the network's not online at days, which is like, how likely is that? Maybe there's a major provider, like a huge provider of validating nodes is offline. Like if you're a centralized entity that's doing validating, maybe you take up 5 or 10% of the network. Well, then still you're not like, that's not 30% of the network. That's maybe 5 or 10% of the network. Like, and then they're offline and nobody cares.
So like a natural disaster or a centralized.
Like the internet goes out and like a major region, like the entire U.S. loses power. Well, that's probably going to affect the percentage of validators that are on the internet. But I'm also not caring about how a validator is doing because I'm trying to feed my family at that point. So we start going into these biblical. Okay, great. I have my guns and my gold, and I'm like going to Canada.
Well, wherever you go, just send me a little DM because I'd like Savior. But again, guys, I have to do something real quick because I'm a show host. Guys, we have a Richard Hart update, Pulse Chain update, and then we have the Alex from Hedron decoding of that update, and we're live with Gamma. We're going to put him on the spot. I'm sorry if this is not, I don't know enough about this shit to really make it. But anyway, Pulse Chain update. Richard Hart, you guys hear it first right here. Check it out. This is the app here. Whoops. Let me share this real quick. If you guys aren't following Richard Hart, at Richard Hart Win, he just said Bug Slang, Geth, and Aragon are building the same header, but Aragon is generating a different tray route. New word for me. This is breaking the Aragon sync. Let's bring the boys up. What do we got, Gamma?
Okay, so early days when Pulse Chain was being developed under the old system, Geth had a problem where there was an gas estimation error on a block for something or other, and it was being stopped from syncing. So what's happening here is Aragon, which is one of the reasons why they're doing this sync from 0 to current block headers. The database that Aragon is creating is incompatible with the database that Geth is creating, and they should be the same database, which is effectively what we're talking about. Aragon is going through and it's building out this huge database so that all the information you need to run the Explorer, to do transactions, to do all that stuff is inside that database already created. And for whatever reason, there's a bug inside of Aragon that's creating a difference there, and there shouldn't be a difference because the database that Geth is creating and the database that Aragon is creating should be the same because they're the same network and we're the same blockchain. So that's going to be a bug the devs are going to get into. They're going to dig into it, and then they're going to probably reset their work back to prior to when they this was discovered or whatever, and they're going to start it back up again, and we're going to continue going. I mean, it could be a couple days fix, it could be a week, a month. We don't know how long these types of fixes take, but I would say that their developers are very competent, and they've been at this for a year and a half, easy. So hopefully, pretty soon we'll see Richard Hart say, "Hey, we fixed that problem I just talked about, and we're on stage this time." So,
Wh-
and what does Alex say about? Oh, is
Let
Alex
me read
did?
the Alex translation. 'cause
Yeah, I mean, read the Alex thing because
translation. This is
he's more of a dev than I am. Actually,
This is probably
he's a
about
super dev.
stage 11 or 12 out of 18.
Stage 11 or 12,
Yes.
syncing the blockchain. And
Aragon
circulating
is
the Merkle
syncing
roots,
to the
yeah.
blockchain, but when calculating the Merkle roots, fancy thing which verifies chain integrity more or less, it's getting a different result than Geth. Bug which needs fixed. Guys, go ahead and retweet Alex's tweet. He's a really, really, really good
Yeah.
resource.
So, like, you know how I said the database is being formed differently for Geth and versus Aragon. The Merkle root is just a really complicated chain of hashes that kind of verifies all the data that's inside of the blockchain. So it's like a database structure, basically. And you got to have the same result on both clients because we want all the Aragon nodes to talk to the Geth nodes and all the Geth nodes to talk to Aragon nodes. And you can't do that if you have different data on each one of those. Bug, they'll fix the bug, and then we move on.
Before we wrap things up, I want to ask you about Pulse Chain launching. And obviously you don't know, but you talk to different people and you have a different experience than I do. And we went from the 1.0 to now 2.0. So like, does that slow things down? In your mind, obviously we're not holding you accountable to this. I'm just curious to hear what you think about this. Where are you kind of sitting? You're like, okay, cool. If it's by the end of 2023, I think that would be pretty reasonable. You're like, where do you sit on the spectrum of like?
It all depends on when V3 launches. And so the only thing I can say about mainnet launching is it's dependent on testnet launching. And the minimum amount of time that I can possibly conceive testnet being live before mainnet would be a month. But I would expect more than that. So I'm hoping for like less than 3 months, but then that's just depends on what they find in testnet, right? The big ask is going to be testnet V3, where like this Aragon problem is a testnet problem. And then of course they'll fix it for testnet and then it won't be a mainnet problem. But then how many testnet problems are we going to find whenever the entire community starts digging around and people start adding their own full nodes to the network and people try and onboard. And the biggest part about testnet for me is education and onboarding the people on how to run full nodes and how to be a validator, which is the reason why I'm doing the series of videos that I'm doing to preempt like all those questions, so that when you get questions, you can just direct them to my videos that I've just already produced. Of course, they're Goerli Ethereum, but it's similar enough that if you get that, then you'll be able to do Pulse Chain no problem. They're the same clients. I'm using the exact same client as an example, and I'm going to do one on Lighthouse and also Aragon, which are the other two clients that Pulse Chain is using. I'm focused on Pulse Chain, but I got to use Ethereum Goerli as my example, which is fine.
Do you think it would be so like I think a lot of people, and my perception going into this was like, okay, I'm not even sure who to talk to kind of like be able to move forward on this front if I did want to run a validator and or a node. It was like it's not something I have the desire to like, okay, cool, I could figure it out, but I don't feel like doing that. Do you think it might be interesting? And you guys can let us know in the chat too, if you think this is interesting. If I were to say, get a hardware device, and then we don't have to do it here necessarily because it might be bland, but then we went through and literally you're like, hey Sam, do this step and walk me through, because then you have somebody who's new.
That's the videos that I produced. It's hours and hours. I'm not doing that on a live stream, but I did 3 or 4 hours of this is an overview of the software that you're probably going to use. If you're using Prism and Geth, here's an overview. It's an hour long. And then I have like another hour where I'm saying, here's how you install Geth and Prism. And then now the blockchains are syncing. And that's like an hour to get it set up. And then the 24 hours later, I come back and I say, hey, look at that problem that I probably knew was there. Here's how you fix that problem. And then I change the command, reboot everything up on that video and say, here's the command that you want to use so that you can have this up in 1 minute. And then within a day, this blockchain is up. And then you're going to do less than 24 hours. And then so you can watch the series of videos back to back or you could watch them individually, get that step done, and then come back the next day and do the next step, which would be, here's an overview. Okay, now what hardware do I need? And what software do I need? Okay, I need to go buy that hardware, come back to step 2 of like, Gamma's tutorial basically. And then I have the hardware in front of me. Okay, great. I'm going to install Prism. I'm going to install Geth. Watch the hour-long video where I go over that in detail. And then now you do it yourself. And then you come back the next day. Okay, great. That problem that he said was there, I'll use this command instead. No problem. Now I understand what he was saying because I did it myself, and now I understand what he's saying there. And then the next, after Prism and Geth are updated, then I can run a validator. Now, what's the validator steps? Okay, well, step 3 of my 3-step process, which is basically 3 hours of videos, outlines how to be a validator and step by step with the links to the websites I reference in the video. And then you also see me go through the entire steps, and then you can find the code, the command lines for that. And then you're doing that. Like, that's like a series of videos I just did this week, basically.
Tell people where to.
I want to shill. I want to make sure everyone gets. And all your stuff is in the description, guys.
Okay, so
go to his Twitter.
Okay, yeah. So you can't see my name, but it's Gamma D. It's GAMMA DEVOPS. Gamma DevOps. The same username as Twitter. Go to my link tree, which is right there, and it has a link to my Twitter account, my Substack. My Substack is where all my videos are. The series of videos where I just explain how to run a validator, the node requirements to run a validator, all that stuff is on my Substack. You can go there. I'm doing live streaming where I'm doing updates and answering questions on how to run a node on my YouTube channel. I have a Telegram group, public Telegram group. You can join it and then ask me random questions. Like, obviously, I'm not doing step-by-step in Telegram. That's why I've made videos. But if you're doing the Substack videos and you have a question about a part, then you can hit me up in the comments of my Substack during one of my live streams or in my Telegram group. I don't think I can make myself any more available for anybody else in the community than this is it right here. And you can @ me on Twitter if you want to. And then I'll probably direct you to Telegram because it's easier to talk to you on Telegram. But and we can do a voice chat in Telegram.
For a business that you would like to show?
So it's the Substack there's a paid subscription for that. So there's a monthly subscription. You get immediate access to all my videos. There's going to be a 1 or 2 week delay on them being publicly available for anybody to use them. So like some of the videos now are going to be paywalled. There's an annual subscription for like $80 a year. A monthly subscription like $8 a year, which $8 is enough that for the education I'm providing, probably fine. And then if you want to do another service I'm offering is like, say, one-on-one coaching. Like you're trying to do it, but you literally need like personalized help. I can give that to you. It'd be like $100 a month, $100 an hour. And then if you're a founding member of my more. Well, a lot more. Okay. Well, we'll see what kind of demand we get before we start raising prices. But if you're a founding member for $150, then you get a free hour with me to talk about nodes and stuff. So I think I'm setting the price points where it's reasonable. And then depending on the demand, in the future, maybe I have to raise my rates if I just have so much demand. I can't. I don't have enough hours in the days to handle all the requests I have.
Let me get some demand on that. I'm good with demand. I know how to get.
And I do crypto full time, and we're in the middle of a bear market, and I'm keeping myself busy. Is really what it comes down to. And I know this stuff really well. Oh yeah. Also, another service that I'm providing is like if teams on Pulse Chain need somebody to manage their infrastructure, need to build out secure RPC, archive, subgraph infrastructure for themselves, then like hit me up because I can manage it for you. Obviously, there's a contract with that, but we can discuss that in private. So like that's what I'm doing. I'm literally doing nodes. I think it's a needed service. I have the requisite understanding, knowledge, skill to do it. Nobody else is really doing it. Alex from Hedron is awesome. And he has like an RPC service he's thinking about doing. He's got his projects that he's doing. He's got all this stuff going on. But I'm like one-on-one, getting with you, educating you. I will like be a part of your team part-time to like help you manage some stuff if you need it. Or if not, you can just hit me up and then I'll tell you how to do it. Follow
Dude,
me.
you're doing such an amazing service and job. I mean, you're doing the Lord's work, really. You know what I mean. You're doing this is incredibly important for decentralization. And I wanted to add one thing before we headed out. Richard did say it's snapshotted all the way up to the breaking block. So once fixed, all the days of previous sync process is maintained.
Yep.
Can you?
They just restart it. So say they stopped at block 10 million, and that's where the problem was. What they're saying is, okay, it's once they fix the problem, they're going to restart that node, and then it'll start from that block, and it'll just move forward. So we're not losing any time. Is really what it comes down to.
Okay.
So that's the big thing that people are going to understand. They're going to be like, "Oh my God, do we have to start over all these weeks and weeks that we've waited?" He's saying, "No, you don't have to. They fix the bug, and they just continue on. No time lost."
Gamma, this has been awesome.
Dude, this has been incredible. I know I can listen to this 15 times and maybe get it down. So I'm super excited.
Oh yeah, another thing is if people have questions after they watch this video, in 2 hours I'm going to be on live stream by myself, going over running a full node, going over hardware requirements, going over the progress of my own test full node, because what I did was I used minimum specs. Like I am syncing a Prism Geth node with specs that I think are way below what you should run, but I'm wanting, well, what I want to do is I want to know, is it possible to run the minimum specs that they actually publish? Because I don't think it's recommended, but I'm going to do it as an experiment and see if it's even possible, which I think it's technically possible, just not recommended to run minimum specs.
You can't run the MEV flash type software unless
Flash
you're
bots, MEV boost, flash bots
only
software.
Only if you're a validator,
It's
correct?
it's only relevant to validators. Okay. Like I said, that software is you're delegating the transactions that you're going to put in the block when your turn to be when your turn as a validator to publish a block. There's two methods for you to get those transactions. You can get it from your own mempool. That means the transactions you actually got from the whole network. You just put those into a block and you're good. That's the way I do it, the way some people do it. Or you're delegating that to a separate server that's on the network. Like you're talking to a separate server that's not the Pulsar Ethereum network, and you're delegating, and they're telling you these are the transactions you're going to put in your next block. And then when you do that, you get a little bit of extra money. Like, I don't know, some percentage. I don't even know what the percentage is, but you get some amount of extra money for that. And like they get some money too for providing that service.
Interesting. To amplify your returns, it's 3 to 4% as a validator. Maybe you can get a little bit higher or whatever.
Maybe you can get another percentage or something. I don't know what the exact one is, but it's going to be 1 or 2% more, maybe 1%, maybe 0.5%, maybe 1/4%.
Interesting.
Because if you're only getting 3% per year, and then if you get an extra 1/4% on top of that, then you're like, well, yeah, I mean, I'm totally going to run that software because I like that 1/4%, right?
Correct.
Thank you so much. And Sam, thank you so much for being able to stick with these guys when they're talking. Sam is very technical and takes notes like a boss, understands all these stuff. And you were a tank gunner in the military for years.
Yeah, I mean, before I joined crypto, I was a field artillery officer. And so I did that for 5 years. So I was a captain as a battalion fire direction officer. And I was a platoon leader in 777s in Afghanistan for a tour there. And then I was also a tank gunner in Iraq in 2006. I was in Ramadi, and I was in near Mosul, not in Mosul, but near it in 2006. Yeah. So I did tanks. I did field artillery.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I wasn't super cool. I wasn't no SF operator or anything, but like hardly anybody is. So
tank gunner. I mean, what? I mean, come on. I mean, you're
I played with the big guns, tanks, 105, then
What
777
an
455.
experience! You are living a life, sir. That is for damn sure.
It was an
And
experience I
so
wanted.
much.
I wanted to lead people in combat, and I did that. And then when I did that, I was like, mission accomplished. Now I'm going to go spend time with my family and not get deployed every other year, and then go to graduate school. That's
Dude,
why I
you
did
seem
that.
like you're 30, but
after.
I'm assuming you're a bit older than that.
I'm 47.
What in the fuck? Okay, whoops, I just ruined the whole monetization of this stream. Good stuff. But anyway, dude, I'm going to be in your DM. Sam, hit me up anytime with a question, and I'll get right in their Telegram and ask them those questions. And thank you so much for your time. Guys, please follow Gamma on Twitter, on Substack, on YouTube. All of those are in the description. Let's get this guy to 3,000 followers on Twitter.
Oh, yeah. I just hit 2,000 Twitter followers like today, so that's pretty awesome.
I was on a mission. I saw that 1990, and I was like, I'm just going to retweet everything.
Right.
And I just started
That's pretty
because
cool.
I want to, just like you're doing your best to support the things that you're good at, I'm doing my best to support the things that I'm good at. I love, I can rally the troops, get people to follow people. I stream every day. So I just want to use my skills for the best opportunities and the best people that I can find. And that is very small amount of people in the crypto space I've found. And I've fallen down many.
I get super stoked whenever I get new subscribers on my Substack. And then it really motivates me to like add more content like every day. So like every day I get a new subscriber, I'm going to like push out a new video for you guys.
Dude, this is amazing, guys. We're all going to make it. When Pulse, Moonbags, Crypto Spring, baby. We're all excited. We've had 500 days down. There's starting to be a little bit of easing in the monetary policies. We're getting a little excited, but please protect yourselves. Please understand that we could be going into the most devastating depression this world has ever seen. I'm not saying that'll definitely happen, but I don't know the future. So please protect yourself. If you're going all in with all the lunch money and all the house money, you're making a mistake. I promise. Unless you're like God mode timing, whatever. Crypto in the mornings every single day. Go ahead and smash that like button. Go ahead and go over to Sam's channel and smash that subscribe button, guys. Let's get it going. Let's make this world a better place if we can. Keep moving forward and keep putting good guys in front of everyone so we can share. We had Papa Boner yesterday, and now we got Gamma. Are you kidding me? Crypto in the morning.
You already know what time it is. Crypto in the morning. Crypto in the morning. Crypto in the morning. Waiting on phone. Crypto in the morning. 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 Waiting on phone. Crypto in the morning. Crypto in the morning. Smoking a blunt on my way to the gym. 11 a.m. and I'm already tuned in. Got me some hacks and I'm making a stay. Got me some heads on, I'm making it rain. Pay me some maxi and that's just in case. Gym ready, sent me to show you the way.